Our Computex 2025 coverage is made possible by Corsair, ASUS, Phanteks, G-Skill, Lee, Seasonic, Thermal Grizzly, Trix, Team Group, Antec, Pro Gamers Group, InWin, BitsPower, Be Quiet, Cable Mod, and Cougar. Welcome back, guys. I'm Stuart from GGF, and it is still Computex Day 1, and we are at the Corsair booth or suite. It is absolutely massive here, and there are plenty of products to check out. Now, obviously behind me, you can probably tell that these are power supplies. So I'm going to mainly cover the top row here. These are Corsair's new RM and HX series. Now, they are pushing these into their shift range. Now, if you're into PCs, you probably know that Corsair, I think they were the first to come out with the side-mounted connector ports on their power supplies. That one's pretty big. I might grab this smaller one here. And once again, I'll always get some B-roll so we can see some close-ups of it. So basically, your power supply normally goes in like this way, nothing on the edge or the end like you would normally have. It's all on the side. Now, there are a few builds here that have this PSU in, so we can actually see that in the works and see how it all sort of works with the cable management and all of that. So connectors on the side. Now they've moved into the HX series, so we have the 1500i, the 1200i, and the HX 1000i as well. So we have the larger connector on the 15. We all know that the 1500 watt PSUs and above need that 16 amp C13 beefier connector for that, but the others are just normal. So I asked them and said, look, obviously they're moving into the shift to do, sounds a bit funny, moving into the shift to do more shift PSUs. So the popularity must be there, and they're saying, yes, they're trialing all of these. They've had the few ones before, but there's actually a bit of a momentum to get these into more cases, because as you can see, the cable management just works really well. And the cables are, I wouldn't say they're thinner, because when everyone says something like thinner cables, I might think it's less quality, but the cables are just smaller overall, the connectors are smaller, and they're just easier to work with. Now, another really cool implementation with, I actually said I wasn't going to grab this one before, but I'm going to grab it now. So I'll get some close up. This one has an IQ Link hub built into it. So if you're into Corsair products, you have the ecosystem. When you buy fans or when you buy their products, you need to purchase the hub. It'll either come in a pack or purchase it separately. This has the whole hub built in. There's 2 ports on there, and you can run, I'm not sure what the maximum amount of devices you can run, but you can run the max you can up there without needing a hub. So the advantage of this now, everything runs out from here instead of to a hub into the back of your PC. So normally having to mount a hub, you would have needed like the hub itself, which is the square box. They now run off PCIe 6-pin power. You need to run that to your PSU, and then they normally run the USB as well. I don't think they have a comparison here, but it would have been really sweet to have 2 identical builds, one with this new setup running the hub from the PSU, and one with the old setup running the hub in the traditional way, because I've done a few Corsair builds, and always trying to put that hub somewhere has always been a bit of a mission to keep it out of sight. But basically, these are the new ones here. These ones don't have the hub over here. It's just a HX range. And you might be running, well, what about their AX range? That's one of the main PSUs I grew up with, I would say probably 10-something years ago. That was their flagship. They did say they have something special coming out with that, so it'll be interesting to see. I'm thinking maybe something like 2200 watts, something like that, which will be cool. And another thing with all of these units, Corsair really held back with running the 12-volt high power. They always ran the 2 8s to go off. Now they've got it built in, dedicated onto the PSU. So all of these have a dedicated 12-volt high power. I believe probably the 1500 watt will have 2. I'll get some B-roll. The 1200 probably has 2, and then we may even have 2 on the 1000. Don't quote me on that. I'll get some closer shots on them. It's good to see now that Corsair are running the 12-volt high power dedicated into their power supplies. Now onto some cases here. We have the brand new Frame 5000D. There's a prototype 4000D. 4000D was already launched, I think, towards the end of last year. There's some more crazy ones over there, so there are quite a few cases to get through here. I'm not going to go over everything because this video will just go on too long. So I'm going to take this side panel off so we can actually not get any glare. All right, now with that off, you're probably wondering what is going on here. So Corsair, I think at CES, they announced this Xenon Edge LCD. I think it's about 14 inch. It's 2560 by 720. This is a touchscreen. It may be disabled. You can disable this. This all connects to their software. You can add multiple screens, so you can have their sensors here. You can scroll off to another one which has Windows notifications. I'll get some B-roll because this thing is super sick. You can get Windows notifications. You can add your Twitch streams on here. Twitch chat. There's so much you can do. You might be wondering, well, how are all these sensors showing up on here? Like, I thought this is a custom sensor panel. You know me, I love adding screens into my builds. I spent hours making those custom sensor panels, but this one is all done via an extension in the IQ Link software. So you just drag what you want. Everything that picks up on IQ Link, and it's just not Corsair products. So it's things like GPU temp, CPU temp. This is load on the CPU. This is the 5090 load. There's so many things you can choose from, and you can change the color, you can change the background, and it looks really good. And it's touch as well. And further to that, you can touch like the sensor here. You can touch on one of these. It's not working right now, but in the future updates, you can touch on like the CPU, and it will show you more detailed stats on that one. So other specs on this, it's got 420 support and two 360s. I'm pretty sure 420 will be on, well, it actually 420 radiator support and two 360 radiators. All the spots will do 420 worth of fans, but only one spot will do 420 worth of radiators, and the rest will do two 360 spots. But this is a really nice looking case, and we'll get a shot around the back so we can see how well this cable management really looks. You can see how super clean this looks. Now, this is a full Corsair IQ Link system or setup. They got everything going on here, but there's no hub. Obviously, there is a spot for a hub. If you're running some of the gear already and you don't want to purchase or you don't have the PSU, they're not forcing you to go down that route. There are still places to mount their hub, but there's no hub in here. It's built into the PSU. You can see the cables down there. They've got the splitter because you may need that for running extra devices. And one neat little trick with this PSU is the shift units, the new ones I just mentioned before, come with a right angle adapter straight out of the PSU. So that just helps with that bend radius, just so you're not coming straight out and you have to bend the cable yourself. Now, one other little feature I like is when you're cable managing a traditional case, you normally got to find those zip tie mounts, those little raised areas, like the little loop. You normally have like someone on the top, someone on the bottom, but the majority of this chassis has all these little square holes. Now, these square holes are all for zip ties. You can see they've just mounted zip ties wherever they want. It just gives them that freedom that they can just run cables straight down, straight across, wherever they want. And those zip tie holes are going to be there where they need them. I really do like that feature. This is the Frame 4000D prototype, literally in the name. A lot of prototypes going on here. I don't know where to start. So this is using a traditional Frame 4000D chassis. The top has been redesigned with a thicker steel material. That's a little bit different. The Frame 4000, if you're not familiar, was one of their first chassis to come out with the sliding radiator rail system. I reviewed the 9000D, similar to the 1000D. It's got those crazy radiator brackets. The Frame 4000 series, or even just the Frame series, is a little bit of a step down. You can still move the radiators in and out a bit, but they're not on the dedicated rails. And I forgot to mention that the previous chassis I looked at, the Frame 5000D, still has the sliding, or not the sliding rails, but the shifting radiator brackets at the front and the top for your fans, just to get that fine tuning, different clearances and things like that. Now, you may have noticed that there is a see-through power supply here. This is a prototype just for this build, just for this show, but I want to know, you guys, does this look really cool? Would you like them to bring out a series of shift or normal units where you can actually see inside the PSU? Because I just think that looks really cool. Now, another feature on this chassis, I won't walk around there because it's just crazy busy here. This has been co-designed and co-developed with Singularity Computers. You all know my channel. I have so many of his cases. They're so good to work with. They're just revolutionary when it comes to the water cooling gear. But you might be thinking, well, how does water cooling and Singularity Computers tie in with this chassis? Well, it's not so much the water cooling distros that they do. They've teamed up with him to do their power board. So what they featured, or Singularity has produced, I would say, in the last 5 or 6 years, is that power board that runs along the motherboard tray. On this case, it's at the back. So it's one power board. You plug your PSU into sort of the bottom of the board, and then it has all of your ports at the back, or in their cases, the Singularity Spectres, it has all the ports around the motherboard for where you need them. And there's also things like the cables are being done by Singularity Computers, custom cables. It's just a really crazy looking case. Even the front is CNC'd aluminum. It's got a fancy acrylic front on there, and the CNC'd aluminum just looks really nice as well. One last area on here I do want to touch on the prototype 4000D. Now, I was walking past here and I was like, why is there a potentiometer on the front here? And I spoke to the guys because I didn't want to assume what this was. This is actually a DAC. So this has been in collaboration with Topping. It's built on their DX1. It is an entry-level DAC, but they're not going to throw something like a DX7, which is a standalone $700-800 DAC unit. This is an entry-level unit, and that's built into the front. So that's going to be your headphone out. You've got your 6.3, 6.5, your 3.5 millimeter, your USB, and then your volume potentiometer. So it's a really nice little unit if you're into audio or you want that better quality sounding audio for your headphones. Obviously, if you're running wireless headphones, wireless everything, it's not really going to matter. But if you're running a good set of headphones, this could be something definitely for you. Corsair launched their dual chambers, I think last year sometime. Now they've adapted to that. This is the Air 5400 mid-tower. You might be wondering what's going on here. So let's break it down. We have some dedicated ducting down the bottom, dedicated ducting at the top. Now, obviously, this is not for custom water cooling. Very limited radiator support because of the air ducting is going just over the fans, and that is blowing the air directly over the GPU. I'll get some close-ups on this, and I really like how they've gone with the clear plastic for the ducting, with the top as well, and then for the bottom. They can all be removed, so if you do find your fans don't fit, or you do want to water cool in this case for some reason, you can remove all of that ducting, but I wouldn't really see the point because that's really what this case is designed for. So I can actually, probably best if I should have opened this at the start, just so we can see inside a little bit better. So yeah, ducting down the bottom, and that just doesn't just go on the fans, that's gone all the way along the front, all the way along there, all the way along the top. And for some of the other features, obviously it's going to be from the bottom to top flow, but you might be running, well, hey, where is this all-in-one cooler? Here we have a dedicated all-in-one cooler chamber. So I would say there are probably 3 chambers. You had the main chamber before, all-in-one cooler chamber, 360 support in here, and then we have this third chamber for, I would say, power supply, cable routing. Now, you might be wondering, well, why did they put the all-in-one cooler in the front, around the back, out of sight? Well, I wouldn't say it's out of sight. You've got the fans at the front, which looks nice, but I'm going to try and get as much footage on this because it might be hard to see. The air goes straight in. There's a duct that just shoots it straight out. So it doesn't go anywhere into the rest of the system at all. Goes straight in, straight out. Now, there is a filter you can put on here, but hey, if I was running this system, I wouldn't run any other filter, just this mesh. Dust is going to go straight in, straight out the side. Now, this is completely open. Some people might be like, oh, it's completely open, what about dust? But I don't think that's going to be an issue because it's completely sealed. It is completely on its own. And then you're not going to be able to see this, but there's routing for tubing to go up the top, and it's really weird. You might be able to see a little bit of that. It's kind of like they've added a paintbrush bristles along the top just to do something a little bit different. And instead of giving you just grommets to run your tubing through for your all-in-one cooler, they've done this sort of paintbrush, and I feel that would give a better seal around your tubes than if they were just to give you 1 or 2 grommets. Now, over this side, I reckon this side looks just as good where the PSU is. Once again, I mentioned those zip tie cable squares. I wouldn't call them holes. They are holes, but they're more or less squares. That just gives you plenty of mounting points for all of these cables. And there's also this little panel here that sits in the middle. I can see there's quite a bit of engineering that's gone into this. Like, you might be thinking this is over-engineered, but I'm kind of thinking, why hasn't anyone else done something like this before? Now, I can see there is a thumb screw for this plastic duct. I can only assume that can be removed. It could be put in different locations, but there's not too much information on this one at the moment. Now, it is back connect, which is always welcomed. I do like building in back connect cases because it does help with cable management, especially around the front. But as you can see, Corsair PSU, and then around the bottom we have your hard drive cage, and then they have the IQ Link hub down the bottom, and it just all fits in nicely, and it just looks really, really clean. And it's like a dual chamber chassis, but it just takes things to, I would say, the next level and something just a little bit different. Just a quick one over here. We're having a look at the new Corsair custom water cooling gear. Now, we know Corsair have been doing their custom water cooling for quite a few years now. I've used it recently in some builds. Now, over here we have their new 50 series water block. Now, I'm going to say water block because there's not many. They're only doing 2. This is for the 5090 Astral. No others for custom AIBs. For other models, they're doing their more sort of all-in-one generic ones, so that'll fit like 5080, 5070. That's the one. They don't have it on display, but one, it sort of covers the middle die, and then you have those other bits around it. So that one's not really focused here, but this is their more custom one. As you can see there, they've gone with the more acrylic sort of design. Their 40 series had a lot of covers over there. I've used it before. I painted some of them white before. This one's more of an acrylic design. And once again, they got that terminal up there that looks like their Dominator memory on the top there. Now, one last thing I want to cover here is the XD5 RGB Elite. So the main difference here, the previous one, the XD or the HXD5, used a D5. This pump is completely different. It's using a Flow Drive Max pump. Now, I spoke to the guys and said, why did they go down that route? It has slightly better efficiency and better head pressure, so that's why they've gone down with that option. But that's pretty much it. These CPU blocks they've already launched. I've used those before in builds. Just a few things to look at here. We're going to look at the Corsair Platform 4. This isn't super new. I do want to cover it because I've covered the Platform 6s. I really do like them. They're really versatile, but this one here is a little bit shorter. You might be thinking, well, it's not that short. That's because it has the two extensions. So there's one there, and then there's one over here. So without the extensions, it would be here to there, and that's about 1.2 meters. Then the extensions are about 300 millimeters each, and that gives you your 1.8. So 1.8 is pretty good. As you can see, they do have a relatively small PC on there. I wouldn't be putting something like a 9000D because these have a limit. I believe the limit was about 25 kilos for the extension, so I wouldn't be putting anything crazy on there. And of course, it does have your up and down, all of that. It has the monitor bar, so very similar to like the Creator Edition on the Platform 6. It just doesn't have that pegboard around the back like that one had, and I really do like this finish. It's coated in something that just feels so nice. It's so matte and it's so smooth, but it is solid real wood, which is nice. Now, what I'm really interested to talk about, actually we'll talk about that a little bit later on. They do have a new Stream Deck. It's called a scissor key switch. So the previous ones were a little bit wobbly. I don't know how I can get this on film. They were a little bit wobbly, but now they have a nicer tactile feel. I'm not sure if that matters to too many people. Obviously, you're not using a Stream Deck to type, do anything like that to game on. You're really just pushing that to do random hotkeys, random functions, starting programs and so on. But the new ones feel much nicer, and the older ones were just a little bit more wobbly, and they had quite a lot of movement. You can see that switch is just all this cap over the top is just moving all over the place. Now, what I'm really interested to talk about is, we mentioned that screen before that was in the 5000D, that was in the side. This is the same screen. So it's the same 14-inch touchscreen, 2560 by 720. You can actually get an external, I'll pop this down, you can get an external magnetic mount. So this is just a desk mount. And there's also two threads in the back of this. So they're standard camera threads. So you can mount this on pretty much anything you want. So if you wanted to, you can mount this on a microphone arm. You could have it sort of above your keyboard with the screen. You can move it out of the way. And you might be thinking, well, why do you want to mount it on something like that? Well, I could hover the screen above a keyboard, and they now have introduced a virtual Stream Deck. So if you pick up this screen, I've actually made a custom one. Well, not me. I got one of the gentlemen here who worked at Corsair to make up a massive custom Elgato Stream Deck just by using this screen. So you can like press on, I think that's the power button. Don't want to do that. This is like OBS. Everything's there. Of course, you're not going to get the tactile feedback, but it's just there. It's got the screen. So if you like a lot of buttons, or if you have multiple ones of these, you can just get this screen. The virtual Stream Deck is there, ready to go, everything you need. And you can also incorporate this with the IQ link that I mentioned before, and you can have multiple pages. So you can swipe one way. I don't know if I can do it, so that's going to move it. But if you lock this down, you can swipe it one way. You've got all of your IQ link, system stats, data sensing, all your monitoring for your CPU, and then you can flick it another way, and you've got your whole Stream Deck. So it's like a monster sensor panel all in one, which I think is really, really sweet. So that is it, guys, at the Corsair booth here for Computex 2025. I really wasn't expecting as much gear as they had, considering CES was only probably about 3 or so months ago. They had those cases, the PSUs. I'm really interested in that Xenon Edge screen, see how far I can take it, implement it in builds, use it for like an Elgato Stream Deck and so on. But anyway, thanks for watching. I want to thank Corsair for supporting this coverage, and we'll see you in the next one.